You have your list of things that went wrong in your relationship, right? Big long list. You know exactly when it started and the first conversation that sparked the breakdown. You are aware of this. It might have been an argument that didn't get resolved or a behavior that you could no longer tolerate, but it really wasn't the thing that caused the breakdown of your marriage. It was the thing that was underneath those behaviors. So the real reason you broke up really wasn't the obvious signs. It was something else that you couldn't see. It was something that you were subconsciously programmed to believe. And this is what caused the breakdown. So relationships shouldn't be complicated. And this is my mantra that I've always said relationships shouldn't be complicated, because if you're on the same wavelength, you have the same values, you have the same um, way of thinking about things, then it's easy, it's smooth, right? You have the same um, principles. There should be no arguments. There should be, of course, there's always going to be arguments and disagreements to a certain degree, like in life with anybody. However, in your romantic relationship, it shouldn't be that complicated. It should not be complicated. So, for a good relationship to happen, there should be a flow. It should be There should be like no guessing. It should be effortless, open communication. And you should also have a feeling of belonging and a feeling of security to a certain degree. Not You shouldn't, like, there's always extremes to when I talk about things. I'm always going to talk about this, okay? So the idea of feeling secure, the extreme would be is if you are really relying on your partner to make you feel secure in every aspect of your life. That's an exaggerated attachment, okay? I'm talking about the secure level where you feel secure in yourself, you feel secure in your partner. You're not worried that your partner is going to be cheating on you, or that he's going to do something, or he's going to manipulate you in some way. There must be this sense of ah relaxation. You can just be yourself. So these are really the goals of a good strong relationship, right? There shouldn't be a hidden agenda. There shouldn't be a feeling of, like I said, any type of suspicion. And there should definitely not be a feeling of shame or um, feeling like you can't be your true self in a relationship. If these things are happening, then you need to reassess your compatibility right now. But if you're talking to me, and you're listening to this right now, then you have already made that conclusion yourself, and you're wondering why it broke down, because the obvious signs were there, but there was something else, and you're just perplexed as to why it happened. So let's look at the cracks that happen when you are in the process of breaking down in a relationship. So the first thing that goes, so the first little crack, it's communication. Arguments, disagreements that never seem to resolve themselves. Perhaps there's a feeling of needing to be on guard for some unknown reason, like you might feel like you might be jumped on, or emotionally jumped on or attacked in some way. And you might have ignored your inner voice or your red flags in hopes that these arguments were just your imagination. Maybe you needed to try better, you're saying to yourself. Maybe you did misunderstand your partner. But your suspicion kept growing until one day you found your partner doing something that you knew was absolutely not right. They cheated on you. They were instead of having romantic sex with you, they were on porn a lot. These kinds of things are really common. And it basically promotes a sense of betrayal, right? Because when you're in a committed relationship, especially a marriage where there's a contract, it's very, very serious, there is an understanding you're going to love and respect each other. And when the love and respect breaks down, then it's a betrayal of the contract. Basically, they've broken the contract, right? And there could be arguments, the lack of communication, cheating, all of that stuff started showing up. But is it the real reason that you broke up? Was it really the ultimate reason? Or was there a bigger issue underlying all those behaviors? So I know that when you expect something from somebody, it doesn't happen, then you of course get so disappointed, right? So I have this rule when I go on vacation. I have no expectations. I will not have any expectations about the 5-star resort I'm going to, whether it's a 3-star resort or 5-star resort or 6-star resort, doesn't matter. I will not have any expectations over where, wherever I'm landing, that it's a certain way. In fact, I try not to look at too many pictures because that sets me up for failure. It sets me up for disappointment because then if it's not exactly the way I've seen it on the pictures or in the descriptions, then I'm going to become disappointed, and then I'm going to shut down any opportunity to see the beauty in anything that comes my way or in any of the experiences. So that's the philosophy that you need to take into a relationship, because when you have expectations, then when there is this need that isn't fulfilled, it will override all other needs. And Esther Perel says, modern life has deprived us of our traditional resources and has created a situation in which we turn to one person for the protection and emotional connections that a multitude of social networks used to provide. Adult intimacy has become overburdened with expectations. So, that we've all been kind of indoctrinated into this idea that when we have a partner, they have to complete you, and that's wrong. It's a version. It's a Hollywood movie. Jerry Maguire. That's a Hollywood movie. That's not reality, right? It makes sense that when we find our partners, they're our mirror. They finish our sentence. We become infatuated. And of course, when you're falling in love and you're in this love bubble and you're in the infatuation stage, you devote yourself to like wanting to know everything about that person, all the nuances, everything he likes or dislikes, how they sleep, whether they snore, what they like on their pancakes, all those things. And that's an exciting phase, right? But it's all encompassing. And we can let it take over our lives completely to the point where we forget about our other networks, we forget about our friends, we forget about our colleagues, we forget about our own personal needs and wants, our own personal hobbies that we have and things that we love. It's very common for us to do this because this infatuation, it's like a drug, right? Love is a drug. It just takes over and we just need to be with that person 24/7, all the time, thinking about them, dreaming about them, sleeping with them, all that stuff, right? However, when we are on such a high of love, it is an addiction, and it is an opportunity to crash, and it sets us up for failure. So we end up throwing all of our eggs in one basket, right? It's the newness, the excitement, things become safe and settled and secure after a period of time. But we still rely on our partners to be our everything. We say to ourselves, we did it, we made it, we found the one, right? They're going to solve all our problems. We're going to feel so great about ourselves because it's their responsibility to make us feel great and to make us feel secure. And unfortunately, this is not realistic. It's not realistic to put all of that on one person. And, right now we know that the modern world, so first world, second world countries, are at 50 to 60% divorce rate. Guess what? It's going up. It's going up because we are more educated, we're more wealthy, we are more attuned, more aware of our options. But here's the thing, um, we know we don't have to settle into a marriage. We have a lot of variety. Um, but I don't think that's the reason why, the real reason why we're divorcing more and more. I believe the real reason we divorce and separate and fall apart is because we have all of these expectations, and that we've lost touch with our community and our tribe. And um, of course, there's a sense of independence and responsibility with the more education we have and the more options we have. So it's a really interesting dynamic because we tend to um, we tend to want that independence, but at the same time we want this connection, right? We've forgotten about our families, um, our extended families, to give us that emotional support and guidance that we used to back in the old country. I know some cultures still have that. Spanish culture is great with keeping family units together. And of course, I'm generalizing. Um, but when we don't have those extra supports to buffer, to have guidance, and to understand why things are happening, then we end up relying on our partner. We end up thinking our partner has to be our everything. And we feel that we need to find that partner. And that's why it's so hard for us to find our partners, because we want them to be good looking, successful, financially secure, engaging, intelligent, funny, right? And all the other things that goes along with our long list of expectations of our partners. So this is the real reason why your marriage broke down. There is an expectation that your partner was going to be everything for you. They were going to provide you with everything and make you feel secure and grounded and engaged and all of those other things. And that's when things start to break down. So without us even knowing, we have this expectation. That's kind of the foundation of why we end up settling, right? When we say we're settling, they don't necessarily, check off the long of all the items on our long list, because nobody can. So then we've already established our mindset around our relationship that it's not as perfect as it should be, that we've compromised and that we've settled. So when you have an attitude of, oh, I'm compromising, I'm settling, when I go into my marriage, my relationship, you're already setting it up for failure, because that person will never be able to meet your expectations, ever. You've already said it from the beginning, but yet you still have those expectations when you're in the marriage. And then, of course, they're going to fail at providing everything for you, because it's just not possible. And you set it up that way anyways. Now, I know this is really nuanced. However, I want you to really think about what I'm saying to you. Now, this isn't about fault. This isn't about, your ex also, of course, your ex also had expectations. This isn't about just you having expectations. Both parties come into marriages thinking the same thing. They're compromising, they're settling. that person's, got to do everything for me, but they never will. So, and then after the infatuation's over, after all the love bubble starts to burst and the reality of real life and real responsibility and real stress and financial stress and job stress comes into it, you've already established foundation that's shaky. So your relationship won't be able to sustain all of the stresses of normal coupledom life. So then what happens? Resentment. Communication starts breaking down, right? Because nobody's telling the truth. We go into arguments wanting to point fingers, right? Because it's always their fault. They misunderstood us. They did something wrong. However, pointing the fingers is not the answer. The answer is looking at the dynamic and what was it underneath your disappointment that started the argument in the first place. And why did you have to have an argument? We are taught conflict resolution. We teach our kids in school conflict resolution. We talk about that at work, right? But yet in our romantic relationships, the intensity is so great in our expectations that it just seems impossible to have a normal sort of conflict resolution conversation. Like, why are we arguing? What is the point of this? What are we both wanting to achieve? Right? These are the questions you have to ask yourself. But then when communication breaks down because nobody's telling the truth about how they really feel, because they are afraid that, number one, they're going to get reprimanded, that their partners aren't going to love us anymore, they're not going to be with us. All those fears are there when we're not stepping up and saying what we need to say. Then your partner and you, or you, starts to feel dejected or rejected, unwanted, insecure. And for men more than females, but we're both guilty, the first thing that breaks down, of course, is intimacy. And then you often see men cheating on their wives. And that's a common result, right? They're looking for some intimacy. They're looking to feel better. They're looking to feel, to pump up their ego because they don't feel like they've contributed anymore into the relationship because your expectations were so high they could never achieve them. Now, of course, the idea of expectations and how they are really the reason why your marriage broke down is a general conversation, right? Because there's tons of other things and other reasons why you picked your partner. And we pick them because we have these inherited love stories that are ingrained in our subconscious. And when you feel that familiarity or the person is just really comfortable to be around, that's not always a good thing. It's just familiar. It doesn't mean that they are your true match, right? So the challenge is to figure out, now that you've broken up and now that you see that and now you can kind of analyze the expectations you had and what you truly needed. The challenge is to now have a look at it and step back from it and make a new list of the things that you truly want in your relationship. And you do it from a soul level. So it's not about the external financial security. All of that, of course, all of those things are super important in a relationship, in any loving relationship. They have to be secure. And secure means secure in every area of their life. But that applies to you as well. So your journey is to find your level of security within yourself before you project expectations onto your next partner, right? What are the expectations you have of yourself? And then rise to those expectations So absorb that for today. This is all about becoming aware. This is not about blaming. This is not about fault. Of course, your ex did something that absolutely was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Absolutely. We're not diminishing that. We're not ignoring that. The symptoms in the behavior absolutely have to be taken. You have to take responsibility for them, for yourself and your ex, obviously, as well. Whether they do or not, it's not your concern. Now you're working on yourself. So taking responsibility for what you contributed and your expectations in the marriage, have a look at that. Journal about that tonight. Feel how it felt. When you look at all the things that happened, write down how it felt and feel it, and then let it go, and then learn from it, and then write a new list of expectations for yourself. Okay. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.